Greetings, fellow pilots, Rhadamant here. Thank you for tuning in to the first episode of a new series covering X4 Foundations. If you would like to skip the game's overview or the details of this specific scenario, please use YouTube chapters, and that information can also be found in the description of this video as well. X4 Foundations is a slow burn game. It is a space simulation where players can explore a vast universe, trade goods, build and manage space stations, and engage in space combat. The game offers a lot of player agency, so that you can take advantage of the expansive sandbox, and you can choose your path as a trader, builder, explorer, or combat pilot. It's a complex game, so this series will be a mix of tutorial and let's play, and that's to make it as accessible to new players as possible. I will be playing the Young Gun scenario with no DLCs or mods, meaning that if you are interested in X4, I am showing you the cheapest way to get into the game without having to buy all the DLCs or even start modding for it. And the goal of the series is honestly just to showcase the game as much as I can in the allotted time. It's a giant game, and there's hundreds of hours of content in a game, so there's no way to reasonably try to show it all in one sitting. I'll be showing as many facets of the game as possible, rather than solely focusing on a single goal, and interspersing game tutorials when the tutorial becomes relevant to the series. So let's start off with that. So we're just going to get through some of the basic tutorials so that you guys have an understanding of the control scheme and commands and all that jazz. And thank you so very much for all the love in the chat. Cheers all. Alright, so this is a help box. It stays on screen until you close it. Others may disappear after a certain amount of time or after performing the required action. Hit escape. I don't have a default input profile, so no. The message ticker at the bottom left of the corner screen is the active mission. So this is true of all of the missions that you're on or active guidances. So it's that screen over there. Very important to pay attention to.
Before we begin, I need to perform a few routine physical tests. Regulations, you know. Please move your head as far up or down as you can.
Up and down. And I don't want to invert it,
now,
so no.
Please walk a few steps. Faster, please. Okay, now do a few jumping jacks, please. Finally, a few squats, please. Great. You seem to be in good physical shape, so we can move on to your flying lessons. Let me know how you want to proceed. Yes?
All right. So, talking with him, you can see a little flight wheel here of what's the options. In this case, there's only one. Continue with basic flight.
We'll start by using the transporter room outside to go to the docking bay.
So when you have guidance to a specific objective, there will be this yellowy orange line to the objective, and you can just follow it and interact with the highlighted items if you need to transport between zones. So right now I'm in the training center, and I want to go to the small medium ship fabrication bay, specifically my Caesar Vanguard, which is the ship that I'll be controlling.
From here, you need to embark and take the controls.
So this is a basic docking bay that is usually or almost exclusively attached to a space station so that small and medium ships can dock with it. And this is my little ship here that I need to board. And we do that by ascending the ladder.
Quasar Vanguard.
And sitting in the command chair.
You are cleared for undocking. Proceed.
So, I will say the game has tons and tons of hotkeys and controls. So, I can either click on dock or hit Shift D. Now, if you were trying to remember all of the, Shift commands and control commands, it would be so much. So, I could do Control D to stand up or Shift D to undock. I don't have all of them memorized. I use a lot of them, but I will try to mention them when I use them, at least for the first time, so that you know what's going on. So we are currently docked with the station, and to be able to actually fly around, we need to undock with it, which is the tutorial. And that was it. And I'm going to go through all the basic tutorials now, and then jump into a few of the intermediate tutorials that I think are going to be relevant for basic gameplay. But to give you a for instance, I am, let's say, not going to get into the intermediate tutorials of, station building or asteroid mining until I'm actually trying to do station building and asteroid mining. That way, the start of the stream isn't like loaded full of ridiculous amounts of information, and also so that the tutorials that we need information for are most relevantly played right before we need them. Alright, so I don't know why I just jumped into a random game, but let's... because I think this was just a continue of my regular. I am going to play some of the other tutorials, because they are very, very useful. This is one of those information-dense games which will blow your mind if you don't take it one step at a time. So the flight controls are pretty different in this game than a lot of others. So it takes a bit of getting used to, for sure.
Use the steering controls to turn your ship.
So there's two ways to turn the ship. You can either hold left mouse button and drag in the direction that you want to look, which is what I'm doing now, or shift spacebar to turn on mouse steering, and then you don't need a shift drag, it just follows your cursor around. I don't want to invert my axis controls.
Now, use the strafing controls to move sideways or vertically.
And then WASD in the ship is strafing by default. There is an alternative schema, but I don't like it.
Make sure there's no obstacle right in front of you. I can't check from here, so I have to trust you on this one. When you clear, gently accelerate forwards.
So the mouse wheel, or X, is accelerate forwards. So you can mouse wheel forward and backwards for your acceleration wheel.
There's usually a speed limit inside docking areas, but you don't have to worry about exceeding it. The ship's computer will limit the speed for you. You can also fly backwards. Try this now.
And then Z, or X, as in like X-ray, is acceleration and deceleration. I never use those controls. Almost always I use tab, which is boost, which gets you to full speed, and backspace, which is a full stop.
Now, I need you to make sure there really is nothing in front of you. When you're ready, strap in and hit your ship's boost.
So tab boosts your ship, but it burns your shields in the process.
Boosting drains your shield, so let's practice what you've learned so far. I've prepared a little course for you. Please fly close to each of the navigation beacons in turn. Your next target will always be marked in orange.
Okay, so this is a little navigation course where we are navigating to each nav beacon. And small ships are pretty agile and able to fly around stations like this pretty capably, which is great. The flight controls take a little bit of getting used to, not like accelerating into like walls and other ships, but once you're used to it, it feels great, especially in combat. As you can see, I'm just sailing through this course at pretty much top speed.
Not bad.
And there we go. That is the basics of flight. So you have strafing, you have boosting, and then you have mouse steering and regular steering. So we'll go through the docking. The docking tutorial is actually probably not worth doing, so I'm going to skip it. I'm going to go straight to travel mode. The reason why docking's not all that necessary is it will be very obvious to you the first time I dock with anything, and then also there are upgraded docking computers, which makes that tutorial irrelevant pretty early on in the game.
This next thing is something you are going to be using a lot. I've marked a remote location for you to fly to. Don't worry, I don't expect you to crawl there at your base speed. First, please align your ship so it points roughly towards the target. Now, activate travel mode. Depending on your engine type, it may take a little time to get started.
So there's different ways to enter different modes. The default mode is Shift 1. Travel mode would be Shift 3. Or Shift 4, rather. But you can also enter it from up here. So you can, or Shift 1, Shift 2, Shift 3. So if you want your ship's interaction menu, you can always hit Enter to get a whole lot of information like autopilot, flight assist, modes, getting up from your seat, ship information, etc. Or you can use the hotkeys, which are honestly just easier to use. The tutorial might require specific methods of gaining it.
Just below the crosshairs. You will keep accelerating for a while until you reach your ship's top travel speed. You've probably noticed other modes in the list when you activated this one. Each mode has its special use, and Only one mode can be active at a time. That was too early. First, please align your ship so it points roughly towards the target.
Unknown object.
So travel mode allows you to
Now, turn off the mode the same way you turned it on.
travel between points that aren't connected by faster travel methods fairly quickly. As you can see, this is the Morning Star map, and I'm buzzing through the solar system pretty quickly. But it wants me to stop travel mode, so there we go.
You are now coasting, which means a few things. First, your ship is decelerating much more slowly than it normally would. Second, steering is easy again. Give it a try now. Third, you've probably noticed that your ship keeps flying in the same direction. You can come to a stop much more quickly by actively decelerating. This automatically re-engages the safety limits on steering. Try it now.
So this part is really cool, where you can sort of drift and slide around if you want.
As for the travel direction, any strafe movement will revert that to the behavior you're used to. You can also drop out of travel mode more quickly, skipping the coasting phase. Let's try this now. Please reactivate travel mode. Now wait until you've built up some speed.
But yeah, the game allows you to like drift and coast,
Whenever you're ready,
and a lot of
quickly drop
advanced
out of
flight
travel
controls,
mode.
which is fun. There we go.
Great. The next part will take place some distance from here, so let's take a break and let the autopilot do the hard work for now. The autopilot automatically navigates to the current objective. It engages travel mode when appropriate and makes use of gates, accelerators, and highways. It even avoids obstacles in the way. Well, mostly, which is why you still need to be at the controls. You may notice that it sometimes turns travel mode off when everything seems wide open to you. The safeties are on a bit of a hair trigger, probably to keep insurance rates from skyrocketing.
So the autopilot is terrible at navigating through like asteroid fields and the like, but for the most part, it does a pretty good job autopiloting from point A to point B, provided there isn't a lot of debris or the like in between. All right, highways and gates is going to be pretty obvious. We don't really need to do that. So the last one I'm going to do before I get started is the combat one. So highways and gates are just fast travel methods that are built into each solar system, which allows you to transport yourself between two spots quickly. That's it.
Time to learn how to defend yourself. There are a handful of targets in front of you. Their HUD color indicates that they are enemies. Some are darker than the others. Those are behind something and can't be hit with your weapons right now. I've now activated your primary weapon. The small dots that have just appeared indicate where the weapons are currently aiming. They will automatically track your current target as long as it's close enough. Note that the HUD markers of some targets are smaller. These targets are currently outside your weapon range. Select the closest enemy target. A new HUD element has appeared right in the center of the target. This is the aim ahead indicator. It shows you where you need to aim, which is especially useful if the target is moving. Slowly cycle through all the targets. When a target outside your weapon range has been selected, you can see the weapon indicators becoming darkened. The aim ahead indicator also changes its appearance. Select the closest enemy target again and shoot at it until it's destroyed. Keep destroying the targets. You'll need to move closer in order to hit some of them. If you look to the right of your crosshair, you will see bars next to your weapons that gradually fill up when you are firing. This is heat. It automatically dissipates when you stop firing. This happens more slowly if there are multiple weapons cooling down at the same time.
So slow projectile speed weapons
Your weapons just
tend to do more
overheat and
damage,
will not be
but
able
are
to
less
fire
accurate.
until they've cooled to a safe temperature. This target is much sturdier than the others. Look at the blue bar above the target. This is its shield strength. After a few seconds without damage, it will begin to recharge. All shields work like this, including your own. I've now activated your secondary weapon, missile launcher. It's loaded with a type of guided missile that requires a target lock. Please select the target in front of you. You can now see a lock being acquired. You may fire when ready. The target has dropped something. Fly right at it to pick it up. It's another type of missile. It has been automatically added to your ammunition storage. Missile launchers have limited ammunition. You can see the number of remaining missiles to the left of your crosshair. Look at the curved blue bar below your crosshairs. I'm going to demonstrate damage to your shields. Wait for it. There we go. It's recharging.
Alright, so that's the basics of combat. And we are going to jump into the young gun scenario now. Or actually, I'm going to do one or two more intermediate tutorials so that you can understand map. The map is relatively complicated.
Wherever you want, whenever you want. Then what you need is a pilot's license.
That's probably the only one that's needed in the intermediates. Maybe missions as well, but probably not, as that's very intuitive as well. But the map is relatively complex, so this one is definitely worth going over.
Open the map. It might be your most powerful tool, but it can be overwhelming at first. We'll cover the basics today. Let's begin with the icons. Open the highlighted menu.
So the highlighted menu is up here. This is the legend.
The legend shows you the meaning of the different things you see on the map. For example, this light green icon in the middle is your small fighter ship. The green colour indicates that it's owned by you. The slightly lighter hue means that you're personally there right now. And the big icon next to you is a station. A wharf, to be specific. Don't feel like you need to memorise this. You will always have access to it. Close this menu for now. Zoom out as far as you can. The hexagon you see is a sector. As you explore, you will find many more. You can also pan and rotate the view. Do so now. Good. If you ever get lost, you can always return your camera to the current location. Try it. Select an object. This selection is different from the target you select outside of the map. I have marked the wharf as your HUD target so you can see the difference. Clear your selected object for now. As you can see, this does not affect your HUD target. Now interact with your ship. Select Information. Here you can see some general information as well as the ship's pilot, you in this case, and cargo storage. Take your time looking around, then open the highlighted menu at the top. Here you can see more details about the pilot as well as the rest of the crew. Expand the information for one of your service crew. Now you can see a detailed overview of this person's skills. Sometimes individuals can have an aptitude outside of their current role and might be worth reassigning to a different role. You can assign roles and perform other advanced actions using the various tabs of this menu. We'll cover those actions in later lessons. Close this menu to move on. Open the object list. It lists all currently visible objects with some sorting and filtering options. By default, it shows you all ships and stations. Open the menu that shows deployables. It only lists a navigation beacon, not the satellite that is also nearby. That's because the satellite is currently off screen. Zoom out until the satellite's icon is visible. Now that the satellite's icon is visible, it is also listed in the menu. You can also select and interact with objects from the menu. Interact with the satellite and deactivate it. Good. Open the Property Owned menu. This menu lists everything you own, even if the icons are not currently on screen. That is why you can see another ship here, but not in the object list. Focus the camera on the other ship. The camera will now follow your ship until you manually move it again. Zooming also keeps the camera focused on the ship now, and not on the cursor position. Try it. To stop the camera from following the ship, simply pan in any direction. Do so now. And those are the basics of using the map. If you want a refresher on what certain menus do, you can activate a help overlay with the highlighted button. Do so now. Each highlighted button can now show you what it does. Use the button again to turn it off. Take your time looking around. Close the map when you're done.
Alright, that's the mapping tutorial. Being able to use the map is really important, especially when you're trying to control multiple things other than your own individual ship. Because this game allows you to build stations and have fleets and traders and miners, and you're definitely going to need to use the map to interact with just about all of that. There is a whole lot of different types of gameplays, but I'm going to be doing the Young Gun, which is a sandbox gameplay start.
Even after everything that has struck over the last few decades, the Terran conflict, the Xenon, and the jump gates shutdown, the Argon Federation has established itself as a key power in this new jump gate network. And even its most distant colony, Black Hole Sun, is a hub of trade and community. Opportunities are aplenty for all. Every day, scores of young pilots set out from the system for the first time, on their way to find adventure among the stars.
In we go.
Val Selton's log, Day 1. I'm excited to get underway with this new ship. I'm not entirely sure what I'll do yet. Trading, exploring, am I brave enough to face combat? Whatever it is, I'm sure it'll be exciting. Here goes nothing.
So this scenario is unguided, entirely sandbox. Probably not what a brand new player should do. It doesn't require any DLCs or mods. And it's pretty much the standard go-to for a new sandbox game. So here we are. We have a starting ship. We are in Argon space. It's worth probably mentioning that there is a whole bunch of different factions. Some warring with one another, some that are sort of xenophobic, some that are completely hostile, and it looks to me like this station is actually being attacked by one said faction. So there are the Xenon, let me pause a second, which are more or less just artificial general intelligence that got real nasty. It was invented by the Terrans and used for terraforming, and now they're just terrorizing everybody. That would be the TLDR. Argon Federation is not the Terrans. They are humans, but they're not from Terra necessarily. And there's a whole bunch of other different species as well. We'll get into that once we interact with them. So what I want to do right at the start here is to take some starting missions. For money and experience. The types of missions that you are going to be offered will heavily depend upon your experience as a pilot, which is driven from your combat and trade ranks. And combat and trade ranks are a result of doing trade and combat. So blow more ships up, you get harder combat missions. Do more trade, and you get higher volume trade missions. That's sort of the easy way to explain it. The other thing that's going to be really important to know early on is that when we do missions for certain factions. We're obviously going to build up reputation with those factions, and that will unlock additional options. Most importantly, it will unlock the ability to buy better blueprints for station building and better upgrades and better ships from that specific faction. Every faction has different types of equipment. Generally speaking, most of them have the same sort of guns and weapons with slight modifiers to one another, more or less the same engines and travel engines and thrusters and all that stuff. But if you want to min-max your ships, you're probably going to need to have pretty good reputation with a whole bunch of different factions. Personally, I really like Paranid combat ships with like Terran weapons and mods. That's pretty meta, though. That's pretty standard. And that gets into sort of way beyond the scope of what I'm doing right now. But my point is that when I am doing some basic missions, it's probably going to be worth incorporating some exploration into that, and then also as much faction rep building as possible. Now, one of the other things is that the factions, once I have a police license, buying a police license, blowing up hostiles within their space will also help with reputation, as will trade and a whole bunch of other things. So there isn't just like one way to build up reputation. There is a whole bunch of different ways to build up reputation. In order to search for missions, I can go to mission offers, and that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be mission offers in the area. Mission offers are sort of mostly locally broadcasted, meaning that if I want missions, sometimes you have to fly to different stations within a solar system, and possibly there are no missions being offered in that solar system at all. That's fairly common. Argon Prime is the heart of Argon Federation space, so if I want a mission from Argon, likely I can pick it up from Argon Prime. I think what I want to do right at the start here is to do a little bit of exploration and go over to Argon Prime. So I can start guidance to Argon Prime by just like right-clicking anywhere in Argon Prime space, and it will create a guidance path for me. So let's hop into the ship, fly around, maybe blow up a few Xenon, because they're nasty.
Elite. Vanguard.
And then head towards Argon Prime, or wherever I have to head in order to pick up my first mission or two.
Argon equipment dock.
As you can see, the station that I'm at has plenty of defense stations, so the tiny little ships that are attacking are bug swatted almost immediately. They are of virtually no consequence.
Jump gate. Second contact.
And as I fly around, there's different settings. One allows you to fly with your menus open in the options, and that's what I have enabled so that I can go through the map here while the game still progresses, allowing me to scan for mission offers and to travel and order things around, just but not pausing the game. If you want to pause the game is one of the only games that I've ever played that actually makes use of the pause break button. So if you ever want to pause, you can just hit pause break, which is next to scroll lock on most keyboards. But that's a very common question that I see. So here we go. Here are some mission offers. Now, not all these mission offers are ones that I'm going to be able to do. So, for instance, resources needed. It wants me to deliver, like, energy cells, meat, medical supplies, spices, and wheat. It offers a lot of money, but that also indicates that probably I don't have the storage capacity of my tiny little fighter to be able to fulfill this contract within 2 hours. And what I will say is a lot of the missions take ages to do. Some of the missions are going to be like, hey, we want you to build an entire defense platform, or we want you to build an entire fleet for us. And they're just not reasonable to take on unless you have the capacity to, like, you know, build massive structures or construct a huge fleet. So I'm mostly going to be focusing on the smaller contracts, like finding loot boxes or destroying mines. And I'll accept both of these now. So between these two, I'm just going to go to whoever's closest.
I knew I could count on you.
So there's mines in one sector to the east, and the salvage is within this sector. So if I wanted to go to the salvage, which is closer, we'll fly over there now. And this will also allow me to demonstrate I can demonstrate the long-range scanner, because I didn't do the tutorial for that, but it's easy enough to show you. And then I can also demonstrate the suit functions, because you can fly around in your spacesuit, which is actually the safer way to collect lockboxes. You can hypothetically collect lockboxes with your ship, but chances are you'll actually just destroy the lockbox, depending on your ship's weapons, unless you have like really low power beam weapons that can unlock lockboxes. But if you have those weapons on your ship, you're probably doing something weird, because the weapons, like low power beam weapons, are terrible for combat. And then these missions are in our mission offers. So once I accept the missions, they're in our mission manager and we can track them. And ARG is just Argon Federation. So it just tells you who is offering the mission. It tells you the rewards for the mission, the relative difficulty of the mission, which, as I said, is not... So the medium difficulty for the resources needed is an understatement. It would probably take me a lot of time to be able to like buy a trade ship with the cargo capacity to be able to move as many wares as they're asking for. One of my complaints of this game is there is not a whole lot of detail sometimes on those missions. So like if the resources needed, what this is saying is the Argon Food Ration Factory wants its basic resources, which are these 5 resources, up to 70%. But that doesn't necessarily tell me the resource availability of nearby stations. So this will be a little bit more complex, but basically if I did select a mission like this, I would need to be buying energy cells, meat, medical supply, spices, and wheat from adjacent stations to be able to supply the Argon Food Ration Factory. The thing is, the Food Ration Factory is going to be processing those materials into food. So the slower I do this mission, the more impossible it gets. So if I don't have a lot of storage capacity and I'm not moving high volumes of stuff, they're going to be using the energy cells, meat, medical supplies, spices, and wheat faster than I can even supply them. Additionally, that doesn't even necessarily take into account the supply around it. So for instance, if the Food Ration Factory was depending on an solar power plant nearby that gets destroyed, then energy cells might be in high demand everywhere and not in stock anywhere. So you have to sort of analyze the situation of whether or not these trade missions can even be completed. On top of that, in order to even know of active trades, the player needs to deploy satellites around the stations to have the information about their stocks, whether they even have supplies or not. And I don't have a network of satellites, so until I have a network of satellites set up around a whole bunch of different stations, missions like these are completely uncompletable for the most part. So here we are. We are at the lockbox. The long-range scanner, which is Shift 3, allows you to release a pulse of energy to be able to spot objects far away. And you can hold R by charging it up. If you overcharge it, it cancels out. And you'll see the little red mark and an error sound. And there's a lockbox somewhere around here that I have the quest for. And it's going to be a ping somewhere within this sphere of influence. So I have the sphere of influence bubble here where the lockbox is said to be, and I'm just looking for it specifically. And the scan mode is the long-range ping scan is a good way to find those things. So there we go, found it by pinging it.
Unknown object.
And it's 7 kilometers this way. And I'm just going to shield boost over to it. Once we get within like 100 meters or so, I can stop. And what you'll see here is that it is locked and we need to unlock it. So the best way to do that, or safest way to do that, is actually get up from our seat, which is Control D, Control Delta.
Elite Vanguard.
Go to the teleporter within our ship, or the transporter room, and enter our spacesuit. And now in our spacesuit, we can interact with this lockbox. Oh, I don't actually have a laser though, do I? But I think this one just needs to be repaired, not shot at. Could be wrong about that. Or is this just a regular... No, it has locks. Just the lock in the center. Okay, I'm gonna have to shoot this one, because my basic spacesuit doesn't even come with a attack laser. So let's take a shot at it instead.
Elite Vanguard.
The lockbox just like slammed into me. All right, so I'm going to boost back to the Elite Vanguard. Shift D is ordering docking,
Docking granted.
but you can also just right-click and request docking permissions without the shortcut. So I need to fly to the bottom belly of the ship to be able to re-enter it. And it will show you sort of like your approach vector, which is right here.
Elite Vanguard.
Whoa, I didn't mean to boost. I do have a dinky little laser, which does very low damage, which is good. And I'm trying to shoot it like right in the lock to unlock it. There we go.
Container.
Shot, and this has some mixed fruit. I can hold O as in Oscar to collect it. And apparently there are 2 lockboxes within for this mission. So the other lockbox is somewhere in this space, in this direction, so we're going to find the second one. Oops, overcharged. Oh, there it is.
Unknown object.
And I'm probably going to want to buy a suit laser ASAP. There's a lot of suit upgrades, like boosters and lasers, bomb launchers and the like, that are very critical for even fulfilling some of the most basic quests. And they're not too expensive, so as we earn a little bit of money doing these starter missions, that's going to be pretty high up on my priority for buying. And this one is Argnu Steak and Majitlet, which are just like trade goods. And now we just need to deliver it to the person that ordered the mission, which is at the ore refinery. So we're headed over to the ore refinery to finish this quest. And I just did Shift 1 to activate my travel drives, because this thing is like 200 kilometers away. Flying at 20 meters or 200 meters per second would take me ages, so travel drives are definitely where it's at. It's also worth mentioning, because I see it chatted in the chat here. Yeah, there is tons of ways to outfit your ships. There are dozens of different weapons, and then there are upgrade modules for those specific weapons to upgrade their like fire rate or cooldown speed or projectile speed, things like that. There are a ton of options to be able to outfit your ship exactly to your specifications, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So generally speaking, I like to have like a whole bunch of different ships, because not all ships can fulfill the same roles. So for instance, you can have giant capital ships to be able to take on stations, but if you want to take on swarms of small ships, capital ships aren't that great, because usually their weapons are designed, they're slow traveling massive projectiles that are really good at hitting heavily armored targets. They're not good at counter swarm. You can have capital ships loaded full of like smaller weapons that are better for swarms of ships, but then, you know, you might want 2 capital ships, or you might want a capital ship with a docked fighters on it, so that you can deploy the fighters to be able to deal with the swarms of attackers, so on and so forth. So there's tons of ways to outfit your ships, and almost every player that plays long enough is probably going to want multiple ships to fill the roles that are needed for questing, survival, exploration, trade, etc. Alright, so here is docking.
Docking granted.
Eventually, I'll be able to upgrade my docking computer so I can skip a lot of this phase and just kind of auto-dock. But the way this is you want to line up on all of the vertices. So I need to be facing this direction. I need to be moving. I need to be a little bit more forward. I need to be further down to the ground. And once all of the requirements for docking are fulfilled, I get to actually dock. And it's a little fussy about... there we go. It's a little fussy, which is why one of the first upgrades that I tend to get is the docking computers. So to be able to deliver the Argnu steaks, I just go down to the transporter room, and we're going to go to the private apartment. Basically, Uber Eats. That's what I am right now.
Hello there.
All right, here you go. Deliver all matching items.
Great work.
And I just got paid for that salvage contract. Hello. I like your hair. Thank you for tuning in to X4 Foundations, which originally streamed live on Twitch as a miniseries June 22nd. Because this was streamed live as a miniseries, feedback cannot be incorporated, and I've also asked for no spoilers or backseating, so if you could avoid that in the comments, that would be great. If you would like to catch a live stream of mine, Rhadamant.com has my stream schedule and countdown timers to upcoming streams, as well as a link to Twitch. If you would like to join my online gaming community on Discord, Rhadamant.com also has a link to that as well. Thank you so very much for watching, and a special thank you to my Twitch subscribers, Patreon patrons, and the people that turned out to the miniseries, as well as viewers like you that support the channel and made it all the way to the credits. So thank you so very much. I hope to catch you next episode or an upcoming stream of mine. Farewell, my fellow pilots.